This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, we can see what.
Yes, great. Yes, anyone, any questions before I can get started? Anyone, anything as such? So let's look at our pipeline. So the other day we went and created our first pipeline, and let's look at what we can do with this pipeline. Let's look at a couple of settings today, and let's take it from there. So let's look at this again. Just to give you an idea, I have the code, and just clicking on this one, I have this particular code called random codes. This is the entire, let's say, file that is, or this is the entire folder that is helping me contribute for the project to generate some random codes as and when this is deployed. And I also have a developer, or I also have a tester who's written the test cases for this particular code and send it across to me. And I'm storing it all under, let's say, my Azure repository. And I also implemented a policy telling that I at least need one person to review my code. I tell, okay, I say right now that I at least need one person to go ahead and review the code so that I can go ahead and, let's say, look at what is the issues, and then go ahead and, let's say, approve my code into the develop branch of my repository. After that, I set new pipeline, I set classic editor, and I went ahead and I created a pipeline out here telling that, okay, fine, this is the Azure Git repository, the project name is called Android, this is the little branch. And I just went ahead and I searched for something called .NET, and I applied this out. I changed the name of the pipeline. I selected an agent pool, and again, there are two types of agent pools that we can use. One is an Azure hosted or a Microsoft hosted agent. Two is called as a self-hosted agent out here. So self-hosted agent are also called as private agents, which means that you can create your own virtual machines and then host the, let's say, agents on that particular virtual machine out here as such. So these are a couple of things that we were doing, and then we created our pipeline and we triggered our pipeline. So we went ahead, we created the pipeline, we triggered a pipeline, and this is the workflow, guys. Initially, it is telling, firstly, it's telling agent job and it's telling initialize the job. The very first step to initialize the job is this. It's telling, let me go ahead and get a machine for you, an agent machine. And this is the name of this particular machine called FV, something like this. Again, this is something which is controlled by Microsoft. I do not even know what is the IP address. I cannot even go ahead and, let's say, log into this particular machine. Reason being, this is a hosted service. And then it's telling what is the version of the agent. That's good enough. And if I just go ahead and click here, it's also telling me what is the operating system that the agent is really running on, the image the agent is running on, and also it's telling what are the working directories of the agent and all these things out. And then there is a very important step that happens called checkout. What is this, guys? What is Android in this list? Is it our project?
Is it a branch?
Is it a branch?
Project
Or
name.
is it, then
Repository.
if that's if that's the project name, then what this is? This is the name of the project. This is the name of the branch. And what else am I missing here? What is this then? File? Or what
So first
exactly is
one
that?
is a repository and
Repository, exactly.
repository.
A repo is the name of my repository, which is going by the name called Android. It's telling that, okay, fine, you know what? If you want the agent to build the project, this agent should have your code. To build the project, it should have your code, right? So it's going ahead and it's telling that, okay, fine. From this repository, from this branch of the repository, I'll download the code to something called as an S folder of this particular agent. S is called as a source folder. So nothing but you have a virtual machine, Windows virtual machine. Inside that virtual machine, they might give you a C drive. Inside that particular C drive, they might give you a folder called S. inside that S folder, I'm downloading all the code by using an operation called git clone. So it's telling, okay, fine, I'll clone and also make this branch as your primary branch out here. And it is telling, do you see? It's telling initializing an empty git repository in a D drive in a folder called A. Inside that you have 1, inside that you have S. Then it's telling inside that I've initiated something called as a git. And after that, it's just cloning all your code. It's telling, okay, fine, there are about 102 objects that I found. I'll clone all these things inside that particular branch or inside that particular folder and make this your primary folder out here as such. After that, there is a .NET Restore, .NET Build, .NET Test, and .NET Publish that is running. Finally, all your code, which is published, right? Meaning in the form of a zip file, it's sitting in this particular location called a DA1A random codes out here as such. Meaning the let's say the code was copied inside a folder called DA1S source folder, and after the code is converted, it is now sitting in something called DA1A. This is called as the artifactory folder, or we can also call it as an artifact staging directory. It's called as an artifact staging directory out here. Once your product is finished, once your product is finalized, you have something known as an artifact staging directory out here, and all the artifacts are sitting here in this particular folder. But where is this folder again? It's within the virtual machine. Do we agree? Yes, no? Isn't this folder within the virtual machine, or isn't it not?
Yes.
Yes, it is inside the virtual machine. That's correct. Now, as and when the job is done, the virtual machine, I cannot access it anymore. I cannot access my finished product anymore, meaning I cannot access my artifact anymore, which means that if I don't have one more step called publish build artifacts, the purpose of my pipeline is defeated. What this is going to do is very simple. It's going to go inside that particular folder and it's going to upload all your artifacts onto the pipeline so that you can access it from this particular location called as a drop location out here as such. And this is your entire finished code. It's your entire code that is finished out here as such. Yes. Anyone, any questions still here, guys?
Kiran, can you go to the pipelines once?
When you say pipelines, is
Yeah,
it the
here,
run or is
here only, here only. What is this
okay?
warning? Why this warning? No, the
Okay, this one.
pipeline. Yeah, this one.
There is something called iHosting environment. This is a code. This is something to deal with the code. Probably it's deprecated, so shouldn't be an issue for us. It's a deprecated, let's say, reference that they're using in the code. It's a CS project type that they're using inside the code out here, a deprecated version. So it's just giving you a warning out here as such. Yes. Any more questions here? Anyone? Any questions here? And again, as I was telling, we have something called as a test case, and this test case is passed out here as such. So this is the setup that I have. I have the repository. I have the branch inside this particular repository. As a developer, I'm provisioning all these things for you. And as a developer, you are going ahead and committing this particular code inside this particular repository. And this is now attached to a pipeline. So if I say DevOps, I can get a pipeline out here as such. And this pipeline is producing the required or the necessary, sorry, producing the required or the necessary artifacts. And these artifacts are stored on the pipeline itself. You can go ahead anytime download this out, or you can carry this forward out here. And the pipeline is doing all those jobs for you, which is nothing but .NET Restore, .NET Test, .NET Build, .NET Publish, and then publish build artifacts out here as such. Now, this is the requirement. The point here is that I want this process to be automated, which means that as and when a developer goes ahead and commits onto my repository, meaning whenever a developer makes a change onto my repository, he should be able to go ahead and, let's say, raise a pull request and all that stuff, get the pull request approved, and as and when the pull request is approved, the pipeline should trigger immediately. The pipeline should go ahead and trigger immediately without manual intervention. And it should give you something called as the artifact. This process is called as a continuous integration process. Until now, I'm talking about a build pipeline. If I were to automate the build pipeline and tell that, okay, fine, please go ahead and trigger whenever there's a change in the source code, which is this one, please go ahead and trigger the pipeline automatically and give me the artifact. If this process were to be followed, then this is called as a continuous integration process. So how do I make this as a continuous integration process? Again, just click on these three dots of the pipeline, say edit pipeline. As and when you edit the pipeline, there is something called triggers. If you go here, there is something called what? Enable continuous integration trigger. If I enable this out, then it's telling, okay, fine, do you want to enable this trigger for this particular branch? I'll say yes, this is the branch that I need. I'll just save and in the comment, and I'll say here that enabled continuous integration trigger, and I'll save this out. Now let's see, I'll start the cycle from the very beginning. I'm a developer. Can I commit onto this branch directly? Can I commit on this branch directly? Can I make changes on this branch directly?
No.
No. Why no? And what should we do?
Policies. You
Policies.
you add policies.
What exactly is that say? What exactly this is saying right now?
Pull request, right? You need to pull,
So what do we need to do? Yes, to create a pull
create a
request, what do
pull
we need to do?
request.
Yes, to create a pull request, what do we need to do?
Need separate
Feature
branch.
branch.
Exactly, feature branch. I'll say new. I'll say feature. I'll say some random branch. I'll say create. Yes, I'll say leave. Now I'm on the branch called a feature branch. I'll give some random change here telling that this is a sample change to test the CI. I'll say commit, and I'll say sample change, testing continuous integration. I'll say commit. As and when I do that, I can go ahead and create a pull request into the develop branch. And as and when I create a pull request, it's telling one reviewer must approve the code. And if I approve it, it won't accept because one reviewer besides the author must approve the code. So what I'll do is that as a developer, I'll say, okay, fine, set this to autocomplete, delete this out. And as a reviewer, I'll just go ahead and let's say log in with a different account so they can review this out and approve this out. So again, I'm only doing this because I don't want this developer to approve his own code. It is a conflict of interest. I'll just go ahead and I'll say RBAC contributor, or who was the user here. Let's see who was the user here. Say RBAC. It's RBAC reader. This is the user that I have. So RBAC reader at the rate gmail.com. Back. Just go ahead, sign in like this particular user into my Azure DevOps real quick. And once I sign in, I'll just go ahead and look into the pull request, and I should be able to see a pull request out here. And I, as a reviewer of this particular code, will go ahead and review this out. Saying, okay, fine, there is, okay, one merge conflict. This one is the new one. So here, if I see there is one change, and I can also say side by side to see what is the change that happened to this particular file. And I can go ahead and do a approve. As and when I do an approval, the approval is done. Code is merged into the branch. As and when I do that, if you go into the pipelines, automatically there is a pipeline that got triggered. Now it's telling this pipeline is triggered because of this reason, telling that this is a sample change testing CI out here. It's telling, okay, fine, there's a sample change, it's testing the CI. And then it went ahead and triggered this out. And now it is running your change. Again, I did not do anything. How can you make sure that, or how can I tell that I did not do anything? Because of this one. It's telling what? Individual CI, continuous integration. If you run this manually, you'll have something called what? Manually triggered out here as such. So three ways in which you can run your pipeline. One, trigger it out manually. You'll have something called manual trigger. Two is continuous integration. Enable continuous integration so that whenever someone updates your branch, that will go ahead and kick off this particular pipeline, which is the second thing. Third are called scheduled builds. You'll also see that. Scheduled builds out here. What do you exactly mean by a scheduled builds is that you can schedule this pipeline. For example, let's say you're working in an organization wherein the developers are working from 9 to 5, and after 5 p.m. they want to go ahead and run one particular build so that they go ahead and, let's say, build the entire changes that they have done till now. Maybe the organization is small, maybe the requirement is like that, for which you can go ahead and schedule a pipeline run also. You can say, okay, fine, I only want to schedule my pipeline run on a Saturday and Sunday. I only want to do it on, let's say, a Monday or a Tuesday, something like that. So for which, again, I'll go back into edit. I'll go back into triggers. And there is something called as what? Schedule. I'll say add. And now it's telling Monday through Friday, when do you want to run this out? For example, for this particular demo, let me go ahead and run it out at 8:25 a.m. IST. So I'll say this is IST, which is UTC plus 5:30 out here. So I'll just take this out as UTC plus 5:30, and I'll say this is, let's say, something like 8 in the morning and 25 minutes, which is this one, and I'll say save. So I have now put a schedule telling that my pipeline should run on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at around 8:25 in the morning IST. And it's telling, I'm now telling that please include this branch, meaning whenever you're running, please take this branch and run on top of that. And now if you see, the first time it ran, it is manual trigger. Second time it ran, it is continuous integration trigger because I made a change. Third time it will run, which will, it'll take about a minute or so for the run to be scheduled. Now it's 8:25. So it'll take, again, it's not exactly 8:25. Sometimes it might take about 30 or 40 seconds more than that. So once that's done, it'll go ahead and, let's say, schedule your pipeline out here, and it will try to run that particular pipeline. And that particular pipelines are called, now if you see, there's a new load, new run. I'll just load this out. Now if you see this, there is something known as a schedule that happened out here. Schedule, individual, manual. Three different things that you can, or three different things how you can go ahead and, let's say, trigger your pipeline out here as such. Yes, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions
Kiran,
that I can
here,
take you?
yeah, you have triggered every day once, right? If I want to trigger hourly base, how can I?
Mhm.
Every hour it should be triggered. Where you
In
can give
that
that.
in that case, no, in that case, the classic pipelines do not really support this out. It won't give you that kind of a granular, let's say, approach out here. It won't help you do a granular approach. If you want such a kind of an approach wherein you want to say that, okay, fine, every hour I want to trigger this out, then you have to go for a YAML based approach, wherein you can go ahead create this particular pipeline and give a schedule out here in the form of something called as a cron expression. Cron expression for every hour. Classic pipelines do not support that. YAML does that out here. So that's the limitation of classic out here as such.
Okay. Otherwise, we have to, if we need such a things, means we have to go for manual, right? Every hour.
You have to do manual, but no, I mean, not really. You can go ahead and write your pipelines in something known as YAML and you can schedule it out. If you have a classic, then yes, you have to do it, let's say, manually out here, because there is no option here as such. As per the best memory that I have, there is no option here to go ahead and do an hourly schedule out here as such. So even if I add a schedule, it's only telling me that, okay, fine, it's from Monday to let's say Thursday, and I can keep adding multiple things like this for every hour. I can do that, but it's again manual approach, very much manual. I can do that for every 24. I can say there are 24 schedules every 1 hour. Go ahead and run this out. I can do that manually. I can. It is possible, but it's super manual out here. So that's the reason we go ahead and use something called as a YAML based syntax to go ahead and schedule these out. We'll talk about that as well.
So is that something similar to freestyle projects and normal projects in Jenkins?
It's something similar to the Jenkins file that you write. Yes.
Okay. So where do we, I mean, do we actually maintain that code quality and determine whether the build has to get succeed or failure? We are
Do
going to.
we? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We can go ahead and set up something called as test coverage. So if you go here into the pipeline, there is something called setup test coverage out here. So if you go there, and also, I mean, this is just one of the options out here to go ahead and set up a code coverage, or you can be using something like a Sonar or a White Source or a 45 or some similar kind of a tools in order to go ahead and set up things out here, which we'll see. How do you integrate, let's say, a third party tool inside, let's say, your Azure DevOps pipeline out here as such.
Is it the capability is almost more or less similar to SonarQube, whatever it is Azure pipelines are offering?
The capability is more or less similar. Yes, more or less similar. Yes. Yes. Any more questions, guys?
Normally, Kiran, we just wanted to understand. So when
Good.
there is change in the when there is a code change and only this pipeline should run, right? If there is no code change, there is no need of running this pipeline, right? First point.
Exactly. Hmm.
Normally, why like in real time, in which say scenario this schedule runs will come into the picture, like normally if
Hmm.
there is a change, then automatically the build will be done, or later the remaining activities will be done. But why
Hmm.
we go for schedule runs? When in which scenario we go for schedule runs?
In this scenario, we'll go for a schedule runs. Let's say that you're working for an organization which doesn't have a lot of budget to go for hosted agents, because sorry, my self-hosted agents. Because the point here is that with a hosted agent, I will only get around 1800 minutes per month. Now, this is a fact that I don't have to pay for Microsoft. I can still use this particular service, but I am only getting somewhere around 1800 per minute, 1800 minutes per month, which means that I have to use it very carefully. So imagine whenever my developer goes ahead and makes a code change, it's consuming around 15 minutes. In a day, there are about 10 such runs out here, which means 150 minutes per day, right? 150 minutes per day. If I go by this particular rate, I'll end up consuming my entire 1800, let's say 1800 minutes in about 12 to 15 days. If we are going by this particular rate, considering, let's say, all your holidays and all that stuff, I'm telling you, in 20 15 days you'll finish up this entire 1800 minutes out here, right? After that, what are you going to do? I don't have the budget. I cannot go ahead and give you some budget out here. I don't have that. So now I'm telling my developers that, okay, fine, you know what, whatever development you do, not a problem, do it from 9 to 5. After 5, there is no development. You are good to go. At 5:30, I'll go ahead and schedule a run. This pipeline until this 5 o'clock, whatever changes were done, it'll take all those changes, run for 15 minutes, give you the artifact, give you one artifact which has all those changes out here as such. Which means that I'm only consuming around 15 minutes per day, which means that I can go for a month like that. And the next month, my credits are again renewed or my minutes are again renewed. So it depends upon what kind of a strategy you want, or probably you are an organization who wants the builds to only run on a weekend, probably something like that. In that case, I can go ahead and say, okay, fine, I'll do a Saturday and a Sunday. I'll run my builds, and a Monday morning, I'll come back and see what is my artifact, and then I can test it out. Something on those lines out here. In that way, I want to go ahead and let's say schedule my builds. Or in let's say you're a very big organization, you are still using something like self-hosted agents also. One of the scenarios I'm telling, I'm talking about different scenarios out here. Yeah, you're a very big organization, you're using self-hosted agents, you have the budget. Probably on a Saturday or a Sunday, you want all your virtual machines to be shut down. You don't want your virtual machines to, let's say, really work, or you don't want your app service to work on a Saturday or a Sunday, something like that. I can write a PowerShell script, run it out of a pipeline here, schedule it for, let's say, 8 a.m. Saturday, 8 a.m. Sunday Central Time. That will go ahead, shut down all the resources for me. So something like a scheduled run that I can give out here as such. So yes, these are a couple of things that we can, or these are a couple of scenarios where we can be doing something called as a scheduled runs out here as such.
Okay,
Does it answer your question? Mhm.
normally the development, it's kind of, as per my understanding, sorry, correct me.
Mhm.
So for my knowledge, like development should be in terms of sprints or releases, not like every day there is a code change. There should be some
There
requirement.
can be. I mean, there can be a code change every day. If the process is super agile, I want a code change every day, and I will be, let's say, deploying that particular code change on a development environment. I'll be probably deploying it on a developing it out, testing it out on a daily basis. It can be. I mean, it definitely can be everyday code change also.
Okay. So in the weekend, suppose if not only weekend, take this scenario, like it is a scheduled release. The
Okay.
pipeline is scheduled. Somehow the build is failure, the pipeline is failure. Like how it will be reverted, and like the web application, the front end application should not impact, right, because of the failure. If there is a failure, how it will be reverted?
When you say release, we'll talk about that in releases, because most importantly, I'm trying to isolate things out right now. I'm trying to, let's say,
So that's
do
the
one section at a time. The revert, we'll talk about it. How do you rollbacks updates? We'll talk about it. Will we go into releases? Because as of now, I'm just building it out. I'm not deploying it out anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Kiran,
Any more
is
questions?
there any
Mhm.
any blog or article which compares the open source tools with Azure DevOps tools, right? For
I have not come across one, but I can check and I can send it across to you. For example, let's say Azure DevOps versus Jenkins.
yeah,
There should be something like that. Who wins the battle and all that stuff. There should be something like that. I can send across one of the reliable articles out here to understand, or which will help you understand, or which will help you compare the differences between those. But I haven't really come across one. If there isn't, I can go ahead and write a wiki and send it across to you.
In what is this current Jenkins, Azure DevOps, whatever Azure DevOps do, all that we Jenkins also do.
Kind of on the open source world, yes. So it's an alternative, meaning there are a lot of alternatives right now. Like you have Jenkins, you have GitHub CI/CD, you have Argo CD, you have Never Code Buddy Build. A lot of products that are available out there in the market. So it's just like an alternative out here.
The same functionality what Azure DevOps do, same Azure boards, all these functionality, same will be.
No, you will not get something called boards. You will not get something called repository. It's just the pipeline, build and release services what they offer. But you can integrate, let's say something like your Jira with Jenkins and Git with Jenkins out here, or Azure repos with Jenkins out here as such. You can do integrations. It's not a one-stop solution. Azure DevOps is kind of a one-stop solution out here.
Because the customers may ask, why would we know we need to go for Azure DevOps, right? So in that case, the
Mhm.
comparison would be more helpful.
Helpful. One of the, let's say, since I've been working with a lot of clients, one of the biggest reasons why someone is going for Azure DevOps is firstly the ease of use. See, I don't have to really train a resource. If I hire a DevOps engineer out here and I'm asking him to work on, let's say, Azure DevOps out here, the amount of time that I actually spend on training a resource is very less. That's the cost saving factor that I'm looking at. Second thing, though I am paying for the licenses, though I am going ahead and let's say telling that, okay, fine, I'm paying Microsoft for the licenses, the SLA is something that I really enjoy here. The reason being, everything is in one place. So the code development, right? So if I'm talking about the code delivery time versus the cost, I'll always try to optimize it, and I'll always try to give an, let's say, an upper edge to the code delivery that I have out there, for which all these tools really come into place and help me out. So that's one of the reasons why, if you look at the market swing today, it's moving towards Azure DevOps out there. A lot of projects are migrating on Azure DevOps. I still agree the fact that a lot of projects are still working on Jenkins. It's also a very efficient tool. There is no doubt on that. There's no doubt in that. But yes, there is a good amount of, let's say, tools that is there, and also it supports third-party integrations and all these things out here. So I would say SLA and the ease of use. These are the two biggest factors, why people are looking at Azure DevOps today.
And the functionality wise also, right? I mean, some of the tools, not just open source, some of
Mhm.
the proprietary tools also, they offer a wide range of capabilities. So Azure
Yes,
DevOps may or may not cover that.
yes, yes. I mean, most of the tools that are available out there in the market, to be honest, they have a very close competition with each other. They are developing a lot, and the Azure DevOps that I used 5 years ago is not the same Azure DevOps today. Like we use something called VSO and all that stuff. So it's not the same right now. It's integrating. It's helping you integrate with a lot of third-party plugins like Dockers, Kubernetes, helping you do a lot of things out here. So it's offering you a one-stop solution. Again, not a perfect product, but a near perfect is what you can call.
Right.
Yes, any more questions, guys?
The pipelines, history-wise, how many, like, how many days before we can see, Kiran, in the pipelines?
The history of the run, you mean?
History of the pipelines, like how
So
much?
any pipeline, right? Any run that you do, this is stored for about 180 days. 180 days
Mhm.
is the pipeline history. So going back 180, you can go ahead and look at those histories out there. Anything beyond 180, Azure DevOps automatically deletes this out. That history is not stored. And the repository, the commit history, it has, let's say, from the time you do the, let's say, commit, all the history is preserved. So the commit history is not deleted. For example, this is a repository that I'm working with, and I've pulled this repository from a GitHub repository, right? So if I go into the, let's say, branches and look at the history of the file, see, I have this commits all the way from, let's say a long back out here as such. Again, this is a develop branch, so that's the reason it's not showing the same thing out here. But yes, you have a good amount of, I mean, the commit history is actually maintained throughout the period out here. If you are talking about a traditional GitHub repository, I mean, traditional repository out here as such. Pipelines 180 days. Yes. Any more questions, guys? So this is the workflow that I'm following right now. Is that until here, I'm just doing a build. After this release comes into picture. So I'm not touching release as of now. We'll cover a couple of concepts in the build and then move into the releases. That will make more sense. So you're a developer going ahead and committing the code. And when you're committing a code, the branch has policy telling you that you should only update the code. And I mean, sorry, you should update the code and someone has to review this particular code, approve this out, and only then you have a continuous integration pipeline process that is coming into picture, which is giving you the artifact. What will you do with the artifact? We'll talk about that. But the policy that I'm implementing here should be strong, because the reason that I'm telling is that, see, this is the develop branch of my repository that I'm talking about. And this is a default branch of my repository. When I say default branch, this is where all my developers are going in and committing their code. As and when they commit, it's producing the artifact. At a later point in time, I'm taking this artifact, releasing it on top of, let's say, a virtual machine or a web app, something like that. Different destinations. I can release my code out here on different destinations out here. But the problem with this particular approach is that, see, as a developer, you can go ahead and commit a wrong code. If that is done, the wrong code is built, probably your pipeline will fail here, or your pipeline will fail here, or your pipeline will fail here after releasing the code. Which means whenever there is a mistake in my cycle, I have to repeat the entire cycle once again. I have to, let's say, repeat the entire build and release cycle once again, which increases which increases the time to market, or the delivery time, or the time something that I'm pushing out here. So what I'm now telling is that the policy that you implement should be strong enough, should be super strong enough. And that's what Azure DevOps also tells you, is that, yes, you can combine multiple policies. And right now, I only have one policy out here telling that at least one reviewer should approve the code. Should approve the code is what I put in. Even before this, I want to ask a very basic question to the developer, is that, see, when you're telling you're changing this code, you're telling you're going into the repository and changing this code, who's asking you to change this? Why are you even changing this? Are you just going ahead and changing this just for the sake of changing? Or did someone really ask you to go ahead and change this out? The developer says, yes, there is someone who's asking me to go ahead and change this out. Only then I can go ahead and change this out, right? Because I just cannot, because of just doing some pass of the time, I cannot go ahead and change this out. This is not right. There should be someone who's telling me, and that's the reason I have a scrum master in my organization. The scrum master is telling, you know what? If I get a requirement from the project manager or from the client, whoever is, let's say, telling that, okay, fine, probably it's not, let's say, the UI color should be different or something like that. I go ahead and pass on this requirement to my developers in the form of tickets, so that I can go ahead and track this out. And that's where Azure board is coming into picture. That's where I, as a scrum master, I'm telling, okay, fine, I'll go into something called boards. It's like a ticketing system wherein you have three different categories out here. Pretty simple, telling it is to do, doing, and done. What I'm going to do is that I, as a scrum master, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, fine, uh, add a new item here, and I'll say change the appearance of the UI, something like that. Just to give you an example, and I can go ahead, give additional details out here, telling, okay, fine, change appearance of the UI from black to blue, something like that. And I can go ahead and assign this to one of my developers. Let's say I'm considering myself to be a developer whose class is Azure DevOps, and I'll save and close this out. As and when I do that, automatically to this particular developer, there'll be an email that gets triggered telling that, you have a work item that's getting assigned to you. Do you want to start working on that? As a developer, I'll say, yes, there is this work item, and this is my work right now in order to go ahead and change the code. And as a DevOps engineer, what I'll be doing is that I will be adding one more policy on my branch. So as of now, there is one policy on my branch telling for what? Check or require a minimum reviewer to what? Approve the code. And here it is one. I'll do one more policy out here telling that please check for a work item to be linked, which is telling encourage traceability by checking the work item on a pull request and so on and so forth. Meaning I, as an approver, I have to know why are you even raising this pull request? Who gave you this particular work item to go ahead and let's say do that? Is it valid? Is it approved? Is it an approved change? And I go ahead and add this out, and I'll add one more, let's say, check here telling check for something called as comment resolutions. We'll talk about what comment resolution is. I'll check this out. So now I have something called reviewers, minimum number of reviews is one. I have work items. I'm saying, okay, fine. There is at least, let's say, I mean, there should be at least one work item should be which should be, let's say, attached to your code. And there's something called comment resolutions out here. 3 policies I've put in here. Now, as a developer, if I want to change something in this particular branch, I'll say new branch. I'll say feature Kiran change. And what I'll do is that usually my development team, right, they go ahead and normally go ahead and put in the work item number. Let's say something like this, some work item number out here. And here, do you see there is something called work items to link? I'll just click on this drop down. And here I have a work item telling that change the appearance of the UI. And I'm linking the work item to the work that I'm doing for traceability and all that stuff. And the branch name, I'll just put it as 132, work item number 132, and I'll say create. So now it is telling feature Kiran change 132. Now I'll go ahead and say edit the change. I'll say this is work item test. I'll say commit. Here I'll say sample work item test. And I'll also link the work item whenever I'm doing this. As a best practice, I'm linking this work item whenever I'm doing this. And also when creating a pull request from this branch into develop branch, I'll say create. Now, as a reviewer, this is my check. First thing, work item must be linked. It is linked. Comments must be resolved. It's telling comments are resolved. We'll talk about why it's telling a green out here. And it is telling at least one reviewer must approve the code. No merge conflicts. All these things are there. So I'll say, okay, fine. All these things are looking good. I'll say delete the branch after it gets merged. I'll say set autocomplete. And I, as a reviewer, let me go back into the other window. I, as a reviewer, I'm getting one more pull request out here. And now I see, okay, fine. Let me see what is the change. It's telling there is a work item test. Okay, fine. There's a change. There's a real code change. Imagining that. I'll say, why is this change being driven? If I click on this, it's telling, okay, fine. This is the change appearance. This is assigned to this particular developer. Okay, this developer has raised the pull request. And also, if I just scroll down, there is something called as a development history, telling what are all the activities that are done so far. It's telling there is a sample work item that got linked. There is a commit. And if I look at the commit, there is only one commit out here. And also, a pull request has been created. I'm satisfied with this. I'll say, okay, fine. This is the work item, looks genuine. If I just scroll back, I look at the files. And in case I find any issues here, let's say it is not work item test, but it is work item test one. That should be the right one. I'll just put a comment here telling it should be test one, not test, something like this. I'll put a comment here. As and when I put a comment as a reviewer, automatically do you see what is failing? It's telling comments must be resolved, but it is not. There are some comments that are active. We call these as active comments out here. So I, as a developer, I would say, okay, fine. You know what? This is an active comment. My reviewer has given me some comments out here. I can check. Oh, okay. Let's see what is the comment. And this is where the reviewer is giving me the comment. It's telling it should be test one, not test, something like that. I'll say, okay, that's what it is. I'll go into my branch. I'll go into the README file or wherever I was doing that change. I'll say test one. Commit. I'll say corrected my code. And I'll say this is the one I do a commit once again. And as and when I do it, the pull request is already there. I don't have to do anything. The pull request is already there. And I can go ahead and say in this particular pull request, I can say corrected the change to test one. I'll say reply and resolve. As and when I resolve this out, now I don't have a comment that needs to be resolved. And once the reviewer goes ahead, reviews this code, I'll say, okay, fine. He's telling that this is test one, so I'll just give a refresh. And now as you see, there's something called as a test one that's there. I'll say I'm good with that. I'll say approve this out. As and when I approve, pull request is merged. So it's now telling me merging the pull request. Pull request is merged. Now the pipeline is getting triggered. So multiple layers of check is what we need when we go into, let's say, the code strategy out here. Multiple layers of check, and also I'll introduce more layers out here in the form of, let's say, sonar code and all that stuff, which is static code analysis, which will build a robust mechanism in order to, let's say, go ahead and do a quick check on my code out here. So these are all the policies that are there. At least one reviewer, work items must be linked, and then comments must be resolved. And from a work item perspective, now I as a scrum master, I as a product manager, I can go and see what has been the development so far. What exactly has been the commits. Why did you correct the code? If you check this out, yes, there is a code correction. I can track all these things looking at your work item, and I can also see how much of time are you really spending on a particular work item. How much is your efficiency and all these things. Again, this is from an administration perspective. I can look at all these things as well out here as such. Yes, any questions here?
I have a question here.
Go ahead,
So
please.
you already completed the deployment. You already completed the deployment, and the pipeline is also successful. But still, the
Mhm.
request, the ticket is in the to do only. Why it's not moved to doing and next stage levels?
It
When it
is
will
not, no, it is not automatically done. The developer has to do it. Doing and done. If you're not moving it to doing and done, it is at the end of the day affecting your performance only, affecting your efficiency only. So as a development team, I am telling, okay, fine, you know what, while I'm doing, I'll pull this out, I'll drag and drop it out into done, into doing. And after that, when approving the pull request, right? So, one quick thing that you can do out here is that when you create a pull request, let's look at that. Let's do some sample change out here to, give you a pull request out here. Let's say some branch. I'll take this again, let's say the doing request out here, and I'll say test commit out, create a pull request, create this out, and I'll set to autocomplete. And I can also, let's say, do this telling complete associated work items after merging. If I say this, it will automatically move it to complete. I can check this out telling complete the work item after it's done. And once this PR is reviewed and approved out, your work item will automatically move from done, from doing to done. It will
what is
automatically move out here.
what is this like? Similarly, do we have any feature for from to do to doing instead of
No,
man?
no, you don't. You have to manually do it because you as a developer needs to tell me that are you doing it, or are you in a still a to-do list out here. This should be a manual process. Yes.
And also, you while responding to the comment of the reviewer, you said
Hmm.
submit and resolve, right? What is that?
Yes, reply and resolve. Yes,
Reply and resolve, right? If the
correct.
reviewer want to reopen it again, is there a he has to that again raise a new comment, or there is no possibility
No, I
to
can reopen this out. I can reopen. So if you see, I can say active, or I can say something like that. And as and when I do that, as of now, this pull request, if I do anything on this one, there is nothing, nothing that I can do out here because the pull request is already done. But as a reviewer, I can go ahead and, let's say, active, pending, resolved, closed, all that stuff.
pending resolved
I
won't
can do
show.
that. I don't need a new comment. I can go ahead and open up the same comment out here as such. Yes, any more questions, guys?
We are creating future branch always because you are doing here. If we use the visual code that local branch, we don't need, right?
No, you don't need to. You can republish your branches again. You can just go ahead and republish the branch again if it gets deleted.
Publish that step we need to publish after if we use the
Yes,
visual
yes. You need to do a publish of the branch. Yes.
build and publish.
Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone, any more questions, guys, that I can take?
Yeah, in the if we use the Azure DevOps, is it mandatory? Like we have to use these boards only. Some like if we are using Jira, suppose user
Mm-hmm.
requirement, we
Mm-hmm.
have some Jira tickets in the Jira board. How will we? Is there a process to integrate that Jira to the boards, or how? Like if the
Definitely, yes. You can do that. In the project settings, there is something called service hooks. And in the service hooks, I can go ahead and let's say connect my Azure DevOps again. You do not have sufficient privilege because this is a contributor account. So if I go back into my account out here and say, sorry, and say service hooks, I can go ahead and create a service hook between Azure and something like, there are multiple things out here. I should check the exact process for Jira, but I have, let's say, multiple things that I can go ahead and let's say integrate it with. Jira is also supported. I've seen Jira, but I'm not too sure why it is not, let's say, reflecting out here. But yes, there is a process where you can go ahead and let's say integrate your Jira or ServiceNow, multiple things out here to your Azure DevOps out here as such.
Then I have one general question. Can I ask? Here, actually, you are on the screen. Here only.
Mm-hmm. Here,
I have general question.
good, please.
Can you can we bring that window which
This one.
hook service hooks? Yeah, here. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
we are seeing in Azure DevOps profiles like Grafana, Bamboo,
Mm-hmm.
all these. These are all similar to. These are all tools, third-party tools which we can integrate by here by using this service.
Yes, yes. So Datadog, Grafana is like Grafana, Prometheus, and all are like monitoring tools. Bamboo, I'm not too sure. I haven't really worked with Bamboo as such. But yes, all these are third-party tools that you can go ahead and let's say integrate out here.
Bamboo is CI tool.
I'm sorry, Bamboo is a CI tool, is it?
Yeah,
So
I
if
think.
we
Hmm.
if you want to import from the Excel sheet, suppose my business analyst he is maintaining in the Excel sheet and he is maintaining the traceability metrics and all he is maintaining in the Excel sheet. Some
Hmm.
I want to import that into the Azure boards from the Excel sheets. Is that possible here? Office 365.
Not not directly possible. It is not directly possible out here because see, there is something called as a data integrity also that I need to really look at because Excel
Okay.
follows a different, let's say, workflow, and Azure DevOps has a different, let's say, workflow in which you can upload the data. But yes, I mean, if you want to do it in that way, you can write a custom PowerShell script, interact with Azure DevOps API, try to create a work item in that way. I'm not telling you cannot, but directly creating a subscription from here, I don't think that is possible to integrate directly an Excel sheet out there as such. Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone? Any more questions here? Check the chat. I don't see any questions out here. All right, so that's it from mine today.
Okay.
And go ahead, please. Sorry. Hmm?
So currently we are in Azure boards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In some of the resume I see like so if the project is using GitHub or GitLab,
Okay.
so even they use the GitHub and GitLab also this this pipeline, this CID integration and all, is it possible if they use
Yes,
GitHub and GitLab?
yes, it is possible. Even GitHub supports service hooks, webhooks, and all these things out. It is possible. As of now, whatever tools that are available out there in the market, most of them supports cross integration with each other. Like you can integrate GitHub CI with an Azure DevOps CD, or you can integrate your Azure DevOps boards with something like Jenkins. So you can do a cross-platform as well. I mean, you can pick and choose multiple tools also.
We can we have a session, right? Kiran, you will show that how the GitHub will get you will
For
give.
integrations, no, because GitHub CI/CD is something that I'm not covering as a part of the session at all. I'm just covering Azure DevOps completely end to end. For GitHub, no, but if you want articles, I can send it across.
Yeah, please, Kiran. At least how it is working.
Hmm.
Instead of Azure
Sure.
repository, if some project they are maintaining GitHub or GitLab, then how the process will be, at least learning experience.
Instead of Azure repository, yes, I mean that's something that's which is pretty much straightforward. I can show you that particular example. That shouldn't be a problem. But for work item integrations and all these things, we need to, let's say, cover up something called service hooks and all that stuff. So again, if I have to cover that, I'll have to cover both the products, like what is GitHub and all these things out. So that's a privilege of time that I don't enjoy. But yes, I can go ahead, give you some articles as and when you have a requirement. I can send those articles out here. So if you can just send me across the requirement that you have, I can send the specific article to you, and you can have a read out there, and you can experiment it out with your GitHub account and Azure DevOps out here as such.
Correct, correct. At least that will do.
Any more questions before I close, guys? Okay, thank you, and have a good day ahead, guys. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.